Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
All right, welcome back. New Bedford Mayor Jon Mitchell is my guest. He's back in. When was the last time you were in? Last year?
About a year ago, yeah.
Boy, they love you in New Bedford.
Oh,
They re-elect you.
Thank you.
They re-elect you time and again.
I appreciate your vote of support and pointing that out.
Well, it's the people of New Bedford. I mean, you were in here, how many years ago? Was that 15?
So I've been mayor for a little over 12 years.
Okay.
You know, I left the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston and thought I would do something different, and people thought I was a little crazy for doing that. And I, looking back on it, I knew close to nothing about being mayor, so I've had to learn it up along the way, Gene. But you know, it's been a very gratifying run, and I've been there longer than I thought. But I'm still, even today, very energized about the work, and so here we are.
Well, I remember you came in. We had a different set at the time, and you were the brand new unknown former prosecutor, and you want to take a shot going into politics.
Indeed, and you hear about state prosecutors going into elected work, but not federal. It's just not a beaten path, and so it was a little bit different. And you know, I didn't think I had too much in the way of transferable skills. It is different, but you know, I love my city where I'm from, and I just thought I had something to offer. And every day's been a learning experience. I think in general, you stay in the work you're doing if you're continuing to learn.
Well, we had a couple of former U.S. attorneys who beat that path, and they did pretty good in Rhode Island. Sheldon Whitehouse.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, Senator Whitehouse did.
And Peter Nerona, our current Attorney General, was U.S. Attorney. So it is possible.
So there's hope after all.
Yeah. You and I are taping 10:45 on a Friday. How did you do coming across the bridge?
You know, surprisingly well. It was a little bit of a breeze. It was actually bollocksed up in the eastbound direction, not in the westbound direction.
Were you concerned when that whole story broke? Were you concerned about your city?
A little bit. My first reaction was this. One of my daughters goes to Brown, and I immediately called her up and said, I'll see you this summer. We're not going to Providence. But it turns out it hasn't been as big of a deal after all. I will tell you something that's interesting. What I didn't expect is that according to some of our restaurant owners, they're seeing more people from the East Bay, from Tiverton and Little Compton, than they had in the past. So for all those watching in those towns, we appreciate your business and keep enjoying our restaurants.
So your daughter went to school overseas, and you'd say, I'll see you in just a bit. But now this is interesting because some of the restaurateurs in Providence and East Providence are complaining that they're not getting the Cross Bay traffic. But you're saying East Bay people have all of a sudden discovered your area because they're looking for something new?
We've seen some evidence of that, and it's not surprising. I think some people who want to go out to eat, want to try, would be inclined to go over to downtown Providence or the east side, have tried New Bedford and found out we have good restaurants too.
Well, that's an unforeseen benefit for you.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, sometimes
I'll tell you what. My other reaction was, whoever it was that discovered the flaw,
the unknown engineer,
right? That the state of Rhode Island should erect a statue to that person because that's good government right there.
That was the young engineer. We'll put him right up by the independent man, maybe up on the top. In your town, you got a lot going on.
We do,
including the offshore wind.
Yes,
and you talk about that all the time. Offshore wind. In fact, I was out looking for antiques out in New Bedford. There's a big place down by the waterfront. You got a bunch of dealers in there. And as I passed it, I saw the turbines. And you know, you don't get appreciation of them on television. They're so big.
They're massive.
They're massive.
They're massive.
Donald Trump doesn't like them. Now, if Donald Trump
doesn't.
He doesn't. If Donald Trump gets in, he says he's going to put it all to bed, end it all on day one. Listen to this, then I want your reaction. Because this is a big deal for you.
Right over there, you'll see these things all over the place. They destroy everything. They're horrible and the most expensive energy there is. They ruin the environment. They kill the birds. We are going to make sure that that ends on day one. I'm going to write it out in an executive order. It's going to end on day one.
Wow. He's going to pull the plug on you.
Well, he's certainly been consistent in his views.
Well, listen, there's a chance he could get in, and if he does, day one business, pull the plug on all the turbines. That'll bring your city.
Well, so
they're being constructed there. You're a big part of it.
Yeah, look, it's been a boon to New Bedford, the first project, the Vineyard Wind project, and there's been an awful lot of other investment related to that project and the downstream projects that we anticipate. But there's no doubt about it. The offshore wind industry is looking at the next election and wondering whether they should be holding off on some of their investments because of what you just heard. During his first administration, President Trump was made no bones about it. Didn't like offshore wind. I think he had some visceral reaction to it from his golf course. Well, he saw the ones from his golf course in Scotland and said, "I don't like them," and so he doesn't like any of them. But the reality is, though, that industry is creating a whole lot of non-exportable American jobs. And so any president that comes in and says, we got to get rid of this, has to come to terms with the fact that he may be doing away with a lot of good American jobs in the process. So the offshore wind industry is in a different position now and will be next year after the election than it was back in 2016. It has taken root in lots of places, including along the eastern seaboard, and there are people who rely on it now, or there are families that rely on it. And so I think, I think that point has to be made to him.
Okay.
Like some things are said in campaigns that don't turn out to be the case when people get down to the business of governance. And so we'll see, but there is cause for concern in the industry.
No, you're not laughing it off. You're not saying, "Oh, that's Trump bluster." This,
no,
that.
I mean, from strictly from our own provincial perspective in New Bedford, what we're trying to do is to become a multifaceted center for maritime commerce and marine industries generally, and so that includes fishing. Of course, we are still America's top commercial fishing port.
Yes,
we're bringing back new lines of cargo. We are also building out our recreational base. There's a lot, and we're also spending a lot of time and energy and investment on building out our marine tech footprint as well. That's going to be another big thing. So, and there will be some projects that will continue to go forward regardless of who's president.
I'll tell you what, save those. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll continue the list. And I want to ask you about crime is down. And I want to ask you about the price of a house in New Bedford, because Massachusetts is getting expensive.
Indeed it is.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with the mayor. Welcome back to 10 News Conference. Mayor Jon Mitchell from New Bedford continues with me. Mayor, what's the average price of a house in your fair city, New Bedford?
So as of April of this year, the last month for which we have data, the median price of a single-family home is $357,000.
Median?
Median.
Okay, and what are you getting for a triple-decker out there?
It's about 4 1/4.
4 1/4.
Yeah.
Good investment.
I think so, right? So they've certainly gone up a lot. So the triple deckers have gone up close to 30% on average in the last year. I think some of that reflects some speculation about the impact of the start of commercial, passenger rail service to Boston. I think some of it is a little bit of a bubble because I personally don't believe it's going to have as much of an impact as has been reported over the years or forecast over the years. It'll be a good thing for the city for sure, but I think it's hard for those kinds of homes to those kinds of properties to sustain those levels of pricing. I think it's hard for me to imagine there are that many people who can pay those rents.
Well, if your prices are going up in New Bedford, I guess that overall that's a good thing, although sometimes there's a downside of it because the traditional New Bedford people can't afford the city anymore, gentrification. Have you seen any of that? I've heard complaints in other cities.
Yeah, well, so people certainly complain about gentrification. And look, housing, there is a housing problem across the United States. It's just not the same problem in every city. And the major cities, what you see is essentially a whole lot of folks who are upwardly mobile, seeking jobs in the tech sector or to be high-paid professionals, and they're crowding people out of those cities. In New Bedford, it's a little bit different. We're not getting, despite our success in many respects, we're not getting folks coming to New Bedford so they can be high-priced lawyers or tech workers or something. What we're getting is an influx of immigrants. We're getting an influx of people from northern Bristol County, the Cape, and to a lesser extent Rhode Island, who can't afford to live in those places, and so they come to New Bedford. They're pricing out people really at the bottom of the housing market, and so you see it's not gentrification, but it's still the effect is the same. There are some people who are getting displaced.
This train, if it ever comes, by the way, I'm putting off my retirement because I want to see this train actually happen. I've been reporting about it my entire career here. What's the latest on it? Have you got a date certain? I know it was delayed again.
No, but
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen, and look, it's the manifestations of it are abundant. There are stations that are essentially complete now, parking lots essentially complete, crossings, all that stuff. So it certainly looks like a train ride, right?
Yeah.
But we don't have a date certain yet from the MBTA. We've asked for one. I've been very public about it. I've said, look, we understand that you need to ensure that the route will be safe and that all the mechanisms are in place to ensure safety and for everybody, right? But like with any project, you need deadlines both for internal purposes as well as to set external expectations. So they do need to put a date certain, and they haven't done that yet.
But what do you think? The end of this year, beginning of next year?
The sooner the better. But it's left up. I don't have any information that the public doesn't have at this point. It's a little frustrating. They need to put some deadlines in place.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your schools, and then I want to get to crime. Crime is a good story that you have to tell. But first, your schools. People want good schools and they want low crime. Go ahead on the schools.
Well, the schools have come a long way. When I got into office, our school system was placed under state monitoring by the state. That has been lifted long ago. The graduation rate in New Bedford when I got into office was at 56%, the 4-year graduation rate. It went all the way up just at the beginning of the pandemic to 88%, and it's back down to about 82%, but still 56 to 82%. Represents one of the largest increases, if not the largest, of any urban school district in the United States. And there's a lot of folks who deserve credit for all the hard work that took. We continue to work hard to ensure that our schools are advancing still, nevertheless. We still have had a great record of success in the last few years of the top students in the school district getting into America's most competitive colleges, which, as you know, are very, very difficult to get into these days. And so, and we're building new schools. We have a pipeline of new schools that's in place now. Construction will start on a major new elementary school in the south end to replace 2 century-old schools there. And so, it's advancing. We have a new superintendent, Andrew O'Leary, who is not only well versed in the operation of the school district, but also has his own kids in the school district as well, which is kind of rare for superintendents these days.
Sure, that's important. Now let's talk about crime. Channel 10 gave you a very nice headline. New Bedford touts decrease in violent crime. And then it went on to list the categories. So you're down in, well, let's see here. You're down across the board in violent crime. Between 2014 2023, 34% drop in rape, 61% drop in robbery, 62% decrease in aggravated assault. But yet, reminding everybody, you're a former prosecutor's your area. Arson and burglary down 55%. But somehow you had a 117% increase in motor vehicle thefts. So I guess there's always got to be a little
There always has to be.
Well, a little gray part of a good story.
So there's, the headline is that in the last 10 years,
we gave you a good headline.
58% drop, Gene, in 10 years. That's pretty good.
Yes, okay.
Bedford's a safe city. It's not to say that we've eradicated crime, absolutely, but no places can say that, right? But we are a very safe place, and I think people should know that. As far as the motor vehicle thefts,
it was in the story. The 117% jumped out.
That's fine. But it's curious. So they're up across the country for some really odd reasons. There have been these TikTok challenges that have invited essentially teenagers to go out and steal certain types of very stealable cars, like Kias. I think there are certain Hyundais that are out there where you can just jerry-rig the ignition and drive around the block. And that's what we're seeing a lot of, and it's hard to catch the kids in the act because it happens in the middle of the night. And that's so Providence, other cities are experiencing the same thing. But like everything else, we've got to respond to it. And we're working it.
With regard to crime,
so don't drive a Kia.
No, all right, I won't. I remember interviewing Buddy Cianci once at the scene of a triple murder, and he said, "Well, there goes my crime rate, just went up 300%." So it can happen with one event. How much of crime coming down?
You will never hear me say anything like that.
Well, I remember it. How much of crime is a factor of just that you had a couple lucky years. It's good. We don't want to downplay it, but one event can skew you.
It can, but if one event skews you, you've got crime down pretty low, right? So for us, in a city of 100,000 with a poverty rate that's roughly 23%, so we have a demographic profile that sort of fits with what you presume would be a higher crime rate. We're doing very well. I will say this though, it isn't, so it's for elected officials. Any elected official, most elected officials, perhaps better politicians than I would say, look at how well we've done, and it's all because of our hard work. There are lots of reasons why crime's down. Crime's down across the country. It's down a lot more in New Bedford for sure. So there are lots of reasons. We can debate how much of it has to do with the economy versus just cultural changes or demographic change, whatever it is. But one reason for sure is that we have a well-run police department, and that we've been able to achieve these lower numbers at a time when we've really struggled with police staffing, like other cities. But we've had a real problem there, and that's something that we continue to contend with. So, my concern is to keep up the progress, but to do that, we'll have to staff up our police department. That's not easy right now.
Well, the cops are beat up in the summer of unrest. Defund the police. They just went through that.
Well,
it's hard to get people to go into that business.
There is, and again, this is sort of a generational change, but in attitudes about public service, right? But it's hard to convince younger folks to become police officers, to become teachers, to enlist in the military these days, and that's playing out in a big way in a lot of cities, and including ours, and I don't have an easy solution for that.
I just have about a minute left, so just a couple of quick answers. I meant to ask you about border tolls when we were talking about the bridge. Your director of transportation in Massachusetts set off a flurry when she said, we're looking at border tolls. The governor tamped that down. But then your Senate president just a couple of days ago said, we're looking at border tolls. Is this crazy talk? Because we'll have to retaliate in Rhode Island. We don't want that. You're too close to us.
Yeah, we don't want that. No, I don't think that's a good idea. Look, I get the logic of it, that look, those who use the road should pay a higher percentage of the cost to build and maintain them. I get that, but I think it's just kind of unworkable.
Not a serious proposal.
I don't think that's going anywhere.
Again, 20 seconds. Go ahead, make the pitch for New Bedford. Come to your city because?
Because it is a unique place in America. New Bedford is a place that has all the urbanity that people are looking for these days. The cultural amenities, the walkability, the fairly relatively affordable housing, without all the downsides of urbanity: high crime, traffic, high cost of living. So it's a great place in that sense, but it's also sits on its own bottom. It's not a satellite of any other city. It's got its own distinct history and culture, and it's a place that, frankly, people will, when they experience it, they'll say, look, this is like nothing I've ever been to.
I think you're right. It's got a good look. The cobblestones going down to the water. There's a shot of it. We'll leave you on that. Mayor Mitchell, thanks for coming in.